You know, there's something really strange happening in the American economy right now. While you see headlines swinging from billionaires to financial hardship, the actual reality for most people has split into two completely different stories. Today, we're going to break down the real numbers that define this financial divide. So this is the big question, right? How can we have the same economy, but two totally different experiences? How can millions of families feel like they're being crushed by debt and priced out of the American dream, while at the same time, more people than ever are quietly building serious wealth? Let's dig in.
And this, right here, this is where you can really see that split. For one America, the story's about just trying to keep up with debt payments, watching your paycheck disappear, and feeling like owning a home is just impossible. But for the other America, the story's about building wealth faster than any generation before, mostly through real estate and smart long-term investing. The real key is understanding what actually separates these two paths.
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to start with the most basic numbers. What are people actually earning versus what are they forced to spend just to get by? Because this is where the squeeze really begins for so many.
So, what you're looking at here is basically a map of a typical financial life. You can see income goes up and it peaks between the ages of 45 and 54, right around $88,000 to $95,000 a year. But here's the kicker. Look at spending. It peaks in that exact same period, eating up almost every single dollar of that income. That paycheck just doesn't go as far as you'd think. And that brings us to this crucial number. After the typical household in their peak earning years pays for the absolute basics, we're talking housing, food, getting to work, they're left with about $400 a month. That's it. That's the entire margin for error. That's what's left for paying down debt, for savings, for emergencies, for trying to build any kind of wealth. It is a razor-thin margin. And when your margin is that thin, it makes you incredibly vulnerable to what I call the three great squeezes. These are massive financial headwinds that don't just stop you from building wealth, they can actively tear it down. So let's break them down one by one.
Squeeze number one starts with this absolutely mind-boggling number. A record-breaking $1.28 trillion in American credit card debt. Now, this isn't just some abstract number. It's a massive anchor weighing down millions of households. But the real danger isn't even the balance itself. It's the insane cost of carrying it.
And this is the cost. The average interest rate for a credit card that's carrying a balance is a staggering 23%. At a rate like that, debt isn't just slowing you down. It becomes a wealth-destroying engine running in reverse, making it almost impossible to ever get ahead.
So let me show you how this debt trap actually works in the real world. Say you have the average balance, about $11,000. If you only make the minimum payments at that 23% interest rate, you will end up paying over $18,000 in interest alone. And the craziest part? It takes you 22 years to finally pay it off. This isn't a financial plan, it's a financial prison, and a huge chunk of Americans are stuck in it. Okay, squeeze number two is inflation. Now, we keep hearing that the yearly rate is cooling off, but that's really misleading. The most important thing to understand is that inflation is cumulative. The price hikes from last year don't just vanish. They stack on top of this year's, creating a permanently higher cost of living. It's a one-way street.
And this is the result. Since just 2020, the total pileup of inflation is roughly 25%. So think about it this way. The same lifestyle that cost your family $60,000 just a few years ago now costs about $75,000. And if your income didn't jump by that much, well, you've taken a pay cut, plain and simple.
Which brings us to the third and maybe the biggest squeeze of all, housing. This is just stunning. The median net worth of a homeowner is around $400,000. For a renter, $10,000. That's not a small difference. That is a 40 times wealth gap. For generations, owning a home has been the main engine for building middle-class wealth in this country.
But here's the devastating reality today. 3 out of every 4 American households are completely priced out of the market for a median-priced new home. The single most reliable path to financial security is now basically a closed door for the vast majority of people. And this,
more than almost anything, is what's widening that divide between the two financial Americas.
So, with these razor-thin margins, crushing debt, and being locked out of the housing market, what's the long-term damage? Well, it's a massive, looming retirement crisis. And the numbers here are, frankly, alarming.
Just let this sink in for a second. A full quarter of working-age adults in America have absolutely nothing saved for retirement. Zero. And more than half of all households don't even have a dedicated retirement account, like a 401k or an IRA. They are completely unprepared for the future.
And this, right here, this shows the massive disconnect. Financial experts generally agree you'll need somewhere around $1.26 million for a comfortable retirement. But the actual median savings for households on the doorstep of retirement, people aged 55 to 64, is only $185,000. That gap it's just terrifying.
And even if we look at the average 401k balances for people who are saving, the story doesn't get a whole lot better. Yeah, the numbers climb over time, but look, even in their 50s, the average person has less than $300,000 saved up. Now that might sound like a lot of money, but it is nowhere near enough to fund a retirement that could last for decades.
And this is exactly why it's such a huge problem. We're all living longer than ever before. For a 65-year-old couple today, there's a very real chance that one of them will live well into their 90s. That means your retirement savings might need to last for 30 years, maybe even more. Outliving your money is no longer some remote possibility. It's one of the biggest risks we all face.
Okay, I know, those numbers are sobering, to say the least. But the data doesn't just show us the problems, it actually points us directly to the solutions. The difference between those two financial Americas, it's not really about having a huge income or getting lucky. It comes down to behavior. So, let's pivot and talk about the path forward.
The data clearly shows 5 core habits of the households that are steadily and quietly building wealth, and it's not rocket science. First, they go to war with high-interest debt. They attack it. Second, they lock in their single biggest expense, their housing, with a fixed-rate mortgage, which gives them stability. Third, they focus on owning assets, not just renting them. Fourth, they save consistently, no matter what. And finally, they plan for a much longer life than they think they'll have. It's these simple, consistent habits, compounded over years and decades, that create a completely different financial outcome.
So I really want to leave you with this final thought. The data we've just walked through, it shows you where the average person stands, but you don't have to be average. These statistics are not your destiny. They're just a benchmark. The numbers don't decide which America you're going to live in. Your decisions do.